Welcome back to Velsheen Rule. Nine Democratic presidential candidates currently qualify for the September debate stage, and there are only 2 weeks left for anyone else to meet the new criteria, essentially double the requirements for the last two debates. Joining us now is the Washington Post's own Jonathan Capehart. Jonathan, who do you see joining this debate stage?
Well, we've got 2 weeks left. We've got 9 people. I know Secretary Castro is trying to get his way in there, Senator Gillibrand. So, look, we've got how many people are left? 22, 23? They've got 2 weeks to do it. So I'm not going to guess because I can't guess who's going to be on that debate stage. But this much we do know: half the people who we've seen in the previous 2 debates will be on that stage.
Jonathan, you recently wrote a remarkable op-ed about spending.
Yeah,
it was really good about spending extended time with extended family in North Carolina, and you were sort of polling them about the Democratic field. Tell me why you thought that was going to work as a focus group, and whether what they told you surprised you.
Well, it worked as a focus group because I looked at a yard filled with African Americans who are the base of the Democratic Party. And one of my relatives, actually a close family, longtime family friend, came up to me and wanted to talk to me and said he liked Elizabeth Warren. And that's when it clicked. I've got a built-in focus group. Let me talk to Connell, and then I'm going to go work my way over to Aunt Gloria and other folks and my own mother and talk to them about who they want.
What is Aunt Gloria doing? I'd like to know who she is voting for. I'd also like to know what she brought to the picnic.
Okay, so Aunt Gloria was the one who told me she likes Joe Biden. She thinks Joe Biden should be the nominee. She thinks Joe Biden it could stand up to President Trump. But she was also the one who said that it's going to take an old white man to beat an old white man. Quote, old school against old school. But as she said that, and let me tell you, 20 of the 26 people I talked to were all for Joe Biden as their first choice. But my Aunt Gloria also said she liked Kamala Harris, but she wasn't Senator Harris, but she didn't think she could win, one, because she's not an old white person, but also she thought, and some other people thought, Senator Harris couldn't win because she's a woman. As another relative said, the country's not going to vote for a woman. Hillary Clinton, they didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, and if Hillary Clinton had been a man, she would have won. The other surprise in my conversations at the family barbecue in Severn, North Carolina, is how many times Mayor Pete's name came up. Keep in mind that the folks, I'm 52 years old, and I still felt like the youngest person in the yard, and yet the folks I was talking to...
For 52, let me tell you, you look excellent.
Why, thank you. I'll give you my skin regimen when we're done. But we're talking about African Americans who are in their 50s, 60s, but pushing up their 70s, 80s, and Aunt Lucille, who's 91. But they talked about Mayor Pete. Now, they couldn't remember his name, couldn't pronounce it. One relative said, that other little fella, I think he's the governor. And I showed the picture to her, and she said, yeah, that's him, and she was excited. And what people in the yard loved about Mayor Pete was that he's young, intelligent, stands strong. As one relative said, they liked the fact that when Mayor Pete was hit with the question about what went down with the police-involved shooting in South Bend, that he didn't equivocate. He went at the issue head on. Quote, he didn't lie. He didn't make things up. Other people talked about the fact that he was, in essence, true to himself, that he was upfront and straightforward. And when I asked, what do you mean by straightforward? The response was, he's been open about who he is, and therefore no one can use it to embarrass him or hurt his candidacy. So there's a lot of respect for Mayor Pete. And yet another relative said that while Biden is her first choice, Mayor Pete could end up being her primary choice.
Okay, then here's what I'm hearing, which is, to me, is stunning, because in newsrooms across New York and Washington and op-eds, we hear over and over, the Democrats need to choose a person of color or a woman to truly represent the party. And you're talking about 26 African Americans from North Carolina who said, a woman not going to get elected, and you need an old white guy to beat an old white guy. So are we wrong or they're wrong?
Well, that's what the
we'll
election
soon find
is
out,
all,
yes.
Right, that's what the election is all about. But also, here's the other thing about the woman piece, and particularly as it pertains to Senator Harris. Even though they said, it's got to be a white person, old white dude, or, they're not going to vote for a woman, the position that Senator Harris was in amongst my relatives reminded me of where then Senator Barack Obama was with African Americans at around this time in 2007. African Americans were by and large in supporting Hillary Clinton. Why? Because they didn't think that they, meaning white people in America, were going to vote for a black man, black person to be president of the United States. But the thunderclap moment came when Barack Obama won the Iowa caucuses. It was a thunderclap moment. So my wonder is Senator Harris a thunderclap moment away from getting the attention and the support of the African American community? And when I look at her poll numbers and I look at her stump speeches, looking at C-SPAN and stuff like that, I think the potential is there for it to happen. It's just a matter of whether it will happen.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.